Hi guys, and welcome back to day 27 of Inktober. So today I'm working on Strathmore watercolor paper, and I'm using Higgins Black Magic ink like usual, and I'm just working on the line work with this one. I did actually end up getting a new brush. I know that I talked about that little set of 4 brushes that I got for inking a little while ago, and I got them really cheap. So I think it was like $5 for the 4 of them, but it turns out that I probably should have taken those $5 and bought a singular brush that was $5, just because they started actually warping eventually. The one that I was using for inking had a little bit of a curve at the very beginning, which was fine, but as I've used it, it's kind of done to that. So now it's not as pointy and responsive in the way that I expect it to. So I did have to get a new brush, and this one is just size 0 round brush, and I think it's a Winsor & Newton. It's one of the Winsor & Newton categories of brushes, and so far I'm really loving it. It's the bristles themselves, since it's artificial, it's not natural hair, it is stiffer, which I much prefer pretty much universally, but especially for when I'm doing line work, because I'm able to get these really sharp, crisp lines that I want it to, because it stays in that point. It wants to stay nice and crisp, so it works really great, and I'm really glad that I actually did end up getting this brush, because it's just been a lot more of a pleasure to use than those other brushes. This one just is very noticeably better, but yeah, I do want to make sure that I take care of this one better, because I think that in the past I've been harder on my brushes than they can handle, because I've had this same model of brush before, and it was just a size smaller, and it's horribly frayed. And I'm thinking back, and I think now I've really mistreated that poor brush. I think that I would grind it into the bottom of my water jar to get it clean, and I don't think I really even thought about it until I was looking at this really pristine brush, and I'm like, how long will it stay this way? And then I really thought about how bad I am on my poor brushes. So that is something that I'm trying to dedicate myself to, is being much kinder on my brushes and take care of them, because they can last a lot longer than I think I'm getting out of them, because I'm being so harsh on them. So for this brush, I'm trying to be really gentle with it and take care of it. But overall, I do try to be really careful. Up until now, I mean, I kind of am sad to the brushes, but for actual cleaning, I do try to be really consistent with that. And I've had a few people ask about concerns about using ink in their brushes and being able to wash it out, and it rinses out really fine. I mean, I do have to take it immediately after I'm done inking it, and I just run it under running water, and I massage it a little bit to get that ink worked out. Sometimes I'll take a little bit of soap and just work a tiny bit of it into there, and it comes out completely as long as the ink is still wet. When it starts to dry, that's when you start to run into problems, when it sets and everything. But if you're using a water-soluble ink, obviously it's gonna be able to come out a lot better than the bulletproof after it's already started to dry and everything. It's kind of like watercolor, where if a little bit dries in your brush, it's not going to really permanently damage your brush, but it is always better to have as clean a brushes as possible when you're done working with it. It does help with their longevity. So yeah, basically I'm just saying that it actually is really easy to make sure that you're maintaining your brushes when you're using ink. It's not something necessarily to be afraid of using your brushes in. But I do actually like having very specific brushes that are for inking, because I like to have them have a really sharp tip. So I'm going to try to make sure that this brush is set aside for only inking, and then I can use other ones for when I'm doing ink washes and watercolor washes and stuff. But this one will be my inking brush, and that is its sole purpose. But the way that I kind of got to this end result of a picture of this sketch, I was looking up a lot of different references, and I've been trying to look at ones a little bit more specifically now. For a long time, I've been looking up things that's just kind of a subject matter that's interesting to me, which is absolutely helpful, and I'm not going to stop doing that. But I've also noticed that I feel really inspired to draw when I'm looking up things like clothing and style and jewelry and things like that. When I start to look at it, I start imagining characters and stories behind them, and when I find really amazing looking clothing, I like the idea of designing a character that would wear them and who they are. So for this one, I was actually looking up a lot of clothing and styles. I think I ended up looking like witchy style in Pinterest, and it brought up a lot of really cool clothing stuff that I wish I owned all of it because I love that aesthetic. But it's just, I really love being able to take that into my work, and I think that that's something I want to do a lot more of, is look at different sources of inspiration. So rather than just thinking, well, I want to draw a witch, so I'm going to look up witch and I'm going to look up kind of these objects that go around it. I think that I want to transition more into looking more holistically at every element that would go into it. What type of makeup do I want them to wear? What type of clothing? What kind of interactions do I want them to have with their settings? And there's just a lot of details that I am not really putting or I haven't been putting as much thought into as I would like to be. So for this one, there's a lot of details in her clothing and her hairstyle that was really exciting because there were things that I was finding, and I was finding ways to incorporate multiple ones into one hybrid. And I think that I kind of have gotten a little bit, I don't know, lazy in these details where I kind of use the same type of look and same type of design that I am used to using. And now I'm realizing that that's one thing that really inspires me, is finding these details that I can incorporate into my work. But in the line work process of this one, in her skirt, I did accidentally like bump a little bit so that one of the lines ended up a lot thicker than I wanted it to. And then I had to smooth it all out so that it wouldn't look like a mistake necessarily, but it just ended up looking like a really thick line. And there's a few ways that you can kind of combat things like that. And also I did that a little bit around her neck and her jaw, because I noticed that I made her neck a little bit thicker than I wanted. So I carved away at it a little bit with the line work. And so it ended up having this really dark border around it. There are ways that you can camouflage those. So in the skirt, what I did was I added a few more bolder, thicker lines like that into her skirt so that it looked a lot more intentional, like it was part of the design of that. And that just helps it look less like a sore thumb sticking out like this mistake. It looks more intentional and conscious, and that helps it read better with the whole piece. But also, one thing that I did do as well for both the skirt area and around her neck is, since I was going to be going in with an ink wash, I decided to make those areas where the darker values were going to be. So once I added a nice medium-y dark value on top of the skirt, that extra thick line, it was really unnoticeable. It receded a lot more to the background because there wasn't that huge contrast of it sticking out. And then it became more of almost an oversized, or not oversized, but kind of an emphasized shadow within the line work. So it looked like a shadow. It looked a little bit less noticeable, and that just helps it blend in. So that's really helpful for kind of mistakes that I make like that. I just think of what's something in the next process can I do to help camouflage it? Because there's always going to be little mistakes like that, and it's just about finding ways to make it look intentional or to take the eye and draw it away from it so it's not as noticeable. Right here is actually like exactly that example for when I go around her hair. I gave a really dark shadow right next to her hair, which is right next to where her extra thick neckline was. And also, when I did mess up and do that, I didn't intend for the hair to come as far down along that line. But once I made that mistake, I did tweak the design a little bit so that the hair would be touching her neck a lot more, because I knew that I would be able to camouflage it more. So yeah, like I said, it's just kind of thinking about ways that you can incorporate the next step, fixing it and then tweaking it. But this little board that I am painting on, which I actually should have taped it down at the very beginning when I started putting water down, but this board is really helpful. This is what I do to prepare the watercolor paper to take water. So basically I just tape it nice and snug down onto this board, and it keeps it flat. So when it dries, it's super, super flat. There's no warping at all. It's really a very perfect solution to that. But the board itself, up until now, I've been using a bigger board, and as I was working on this one, I was like, hey, I should just make a smaller board, because all this board is just foam core covered in packing tape, so that clear plasticky tape. So you put it on it, and then it's waterproof, and then you can tape it down, and you can peel the tape off as many times as you need to. And yeah, this board is just so useful and extremely cheap, and it took me like 2 minutes to make. And I kind of wish that I had made this one at the very beginning of Inktober, because I just like having this little small piece that I can have my little tiny artwork on as I'm working on it. It's just a little bit easier to turn it and deal with it. So I'm actually really excited to do small pieces on this just because it's a new little board that I'm excited to use. This is obviously my favorite part. This is the part where I'm using the Finetec Mica Gold watercolor paint. This stuff is gorgeous. I love how incredibly opaque it is. But when I first got these, I was really disappointed because I didn't know how to use them yet. So if you have these, if you're thinking about getting them, what you need to do is take some water and drop it on top of the pan a little bit before you start using it, probably about 10 minutes, because these paints are really, really hard. So it's not like watercolor, regular watercolor, where you can just take a brush and activate it very quickly. Because when I first got this, I tried to activate it like you would watercolor, and it was super hard, and it wasn't really activating, and it was a really transparent gold, and what I'd seen online was this really metallic. But that's really just the difference. You just have to drop the water on and you let it sit there, and then when you come back to it, it's absorbed into the paint, and it has this really creamy texture to it. So it's really transparent, or not transparent, it's really opaque. But the great thing about this paint is that you can make it more transparent. I've used a lot of different methods for that. Actually, in the background of this piece, I did even mix in gold intentionally into that ink wash. So there's this really fine coating of like this gold sparkle throughout the entire background. And because I knew that I wanted to do this very concentrated strokes of gold around on top of it, I thought that it would be a good way to just blend it in. Also, it just means that I have more opportunity to put gold in this piece. But yeah, like there are a lot of different ways that you can use these paints, and I'm starting to get excited about using them in these more watered out ways, things that are a little bit more subtle. But that is everything for today's Inktober. I think that this one is probably one of my top favorites, probably one of my top 2 or 3. I really loved working on her, and just the inspiration that went into it and the overall look was something that is definitely the aesthetic that I want to go more into and really dive into that more, because a lot of the stuff that I've been doing I like at the moment, but I don't think it's like my core aesthetic, my style, and I think that this one definitely is, so that feels really good to start figuring that out. But as usual, she is available at my shop, the original, and I'll have a link right in the corner where you can check out my shop. I'll also have a link in the description as well, and I'll have all of the tools and the paints and everything that I use down in the description if you want to check those out. But yeah, like I said, she's available. And thank you so much for watching. I will be back tomorrow for my next Inktober, so yeah, I'll see you then.